Morning. How's your mental health? How's your week been? What's really going on inside? Why aren't you talking? Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. As always, my name's Rory, and I'm joined but it's more than enough, joined by Adam this week. How are we doing, Adam?
Thank you for that compliment. Yeah, doing very well. I was surprised last week when we had loads of Jamie Carragher's burner accounts hitting our video as we went live to promote our Premier League episodes. It went down like a storm, it's fair to say, Rory. We've probably got some new followers, so hello to you guys.
Welcome
But at
aboard.
the same time, unfortunately, we are now the woke podcast. We're not going to be listened by many of that kind of type of listener, should we say? But yeah, if you are listening, nice to have you on board.
Welcome to the woke brigade. It felt like genuinely a bit of a badge of honor, like online. Okay, we're making a bit of presence online now. We've officially been called woke. We've been called virtue signalers. We've got all the badges now. We're just ready to go on a full crusade of the internet now. I really did. Honestly, the numbers that video hit, I think it was over 200,000 views now on TikTok, which is a bit mental, really. We couldn't quite put it as succinctly as John Obi Mikel, unfortunately, just saying you can fuck off. But yeah, no, did really enjoy watching that video kind of blow up, and kind of dropping a few grenade comments to the gammons in there was quite a fun way to spend several evenings last week. So I really enjoyed that. And you know what? Without sounding like too fucking holier than thou, what I liked was, like, it was a video that got a load of numbers. That was great. But it was also an opinion that we genuinely believe in. It was an opinion that we really feel quite strongly about. It wasn't just us going, Salah is better than Maradona, and then expecting things to blow up. It was actually an opinion that we cared about, and a tournament we really care about. So I think it was quite nice to see that it got a bit of attraction and attention. But yeah, it's all getting too earnest. Let's talk about the stories this week that caught our eye before we get to the FA Cup action. Of course, we will be talking about the FA Cup this weekend, guys, but we can't go anywhere before we talk about man of the people, the people's champion. Jack Grealish was seen in a working man's club in Manchester on Sunday, having a few pints. He looked like he was having a great time. I cannot love the man anymore, Adam. I could not love him anymore. How mad would it be on your Sunday to just roll in and then Jack Grealish? Apparently, I saw some people say that he put money behind the bar for everyone. Just, what a man.
Yeah, he's such a legend in many respects, because it's not just that kind of side of him, which you can imagine he's a bit of fun down a pub or for a Saturday night. I'm sure he is. We've seen those celebration nights that he's been, it's fair to say, probably not seen much food or any other substance other than alcohol.
And a few others, I imagine, but yeah.
Probably. But yeah, he's got the kind of side to him. He's got that element where he understands from his disabled sister how to accents, make them feel appreciated when he sees them in public as well. He's just kind-hearted. He's such a wholesome guy. It's just a shame that he's playing for Man City in some respects, because he's not getting the game time he deserves in many respects. So, yeah, beautiful scenes, it's fair to say, Rory. And the fact that we hear this story just doesn't sort of do enough justice, because we know he's that type of guy anyway.
Yeah, no, I think honestly, within the world of football, if someone said you can have a session with like 3 footballers, Jack Grealish should be the first name I'm putting at the top of that list. Yes, please, night out with him. That would be fantastic. Yeah, great to see him. Absolutely, just normal people just at a working man's club. Honestly, it looked like every working man's club I'd been to growing up in Crewe, or post football or whatever. It just looked exactly like that. I was like,
Phoenix Nights vibes.
Exactly. I've been there. It's £1.50 for a pint of bitter still in 2025 somehow. And I'll have bingo on later. And it's just absolutely fantastic. Really, really enjoyed that. On the other end of the scale, a bit more glamorous, Wilfried Zaha has turned up at Charlotte in the MLS.
FC Charlotte. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Good Charlotte. Unbelievable move for him. In his first game, he got man of the match. And in the most MLS thing ever, they had him sat on a throne with a crown what a league. What a league. It's incredible, right?
It was beautiful in some respects to actually see this happening as well, because you kind of think this would be like a early 90s kind of thing that they would do on a game show, right? I was
Come
kind
on
of
down.
yeah.
Yeah.
The funniest thing was, I don't know if you noticed this in the video, because I was experienced some of this when I was at Wickham versus Birmingham, because as the players came out, fucking fireworks blaring out, right? This is the typical American thing.
Yeah.
And obviously, the moment that obviously Wilfred Zaha sinks his ass on that chair, fucking flares and all sorts go out of his chair. And he's like thinking, what the fuck's happening here? Normally I get a little trophy and I talk to a reporter, but here I've got a little, like some fake, I don't know, Burger King crown, basically. It might as well have been a Burger King crown. And this chair in front of like supporters behind him. I just, wild. But that is typical MLS. That's what we've been missing, clearly.
Absolutely, it's typical America, and you can't knock it really. Like sometimes they just do incredibly American things, and you're like, please don't change, just never change. I also saw Houston Dynamo apologizing that Messi won't be playing against them this weekend, which really made me laugh as well. I did enjoy that. But over in the home of football, England, it was the FA Cup, and we will be talking through all the results there. Of course, we'll be talking about the happenings at Old Trafford. Fulham and Marco Silva getting through for a bit of a cup run. Could they be on the cusp of history? We'll be talking about, yes, that tackle at Palace and how Millwall fans online, sorry, Kieran, might be the worst I've seen yet. We'll be talking about Newcastle and laughing at Anthony Gordon. And then we'll be breaking down all the other results as Plymouth take the lead, but ultimately, unfortunately, can't get the job done. And there's maybe a free kick better than DiMarco in Serie A in this weekend. We'll be taking you to that one as well. So, guys, we're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. It was the FA Cup weekend, and we're starting at Old Trafford. Manchester United 1, Fulham 1, Fulham 4-3 on penalties. The Cottagers go through. And overall, I think their performance probably just edged it in terms of deserving the result, especially first off. I think they were the much better team. I wanted to talk about this Fulham team in general to us, because we've not really talked about it much this season. They've been in that weird nether zone where they've been close to Europe, but not quite close enough. And they've had a few big results, but I don't think we've actually sat and talked about where this team are, Marco Silva, and the state of their season. And I think they're having a very, very, very good season. They are still within a shout of, like, if they can put a run of results together, they can push into that European race. But this now has to really be the focus of their season now, the FA Cup. And I think there was a few players that have had very good seasons that really stood out. Now, I'm not only going to talk about the ex-Arsenal players, I'm going to try and talk about other ones instead. But first one, not only because he got the goal, but Calvin Bassey in general is having a very good season. I think I felt really bad for him after the move at Ajax didn't really work out. He went to Rangers, had a bit of a difficult time there, all things considered. And I think it kind of felt like his career was kind of getting away from him and we didn't know where he was going to go. And then he's got to Fulham now, and it feels like he's really become a key part of what is a pretty sturdy and steady defence. And not only that, he seems like a really fun, nice guy, and the changing room seems like a great laugh. But he's having a very good season, right? We're starting to see the player he could be.
Yeah, definitely. There was already signs of that when he was, as you rightly allude to, at Rangers, where... And what a phenomenal story it is as well, because he was kind of essentially released by Leicester City, free transfer, a left-sided player. You wouldn't have guessed it by his size, but he's a left-sided kind of defender. So he was more kind of a wing-back / left-back, converted to centre-back position between sort of Steven Gerrard and that kind of period. And we saw some phenomenal performances from him as a centre-back for Rangers, which promenaded Ajax to kind of fork out a lot of money at the time for his services. As you allude to, it didn't kind of work out, despite, I think the favourite scene that I had of him with Ajax was first time of him listening to the Champions League. There's a famous clip of him just being in awe of the fact that he's reached that stage, and that was a beautiful thing. But as you allude to, didn't kind of work out. I don't quite know, because a lot of the Ajax fan base said he didn't necessarily warm to them in terms of like the performances. And when he did get bought from Fulham, I thought that was such a shrewd bit of business, because if you get the right coach, you could definitely get something out of him. And you saw it, or you have been seeing it for the majority of the season anyway. He's been so solid. I think there was a performance against Arsenal at the Emirates where he really was unlucky to be on the losing side that day as well. So this isn't like a one-off game. He's definitely been phenomenal in a lot of the games for Fulham this season. And yeah, what a clever routine. What a clever bit of routine to get them ahead in this game. I did share offline a video of the Fulham fans chanting at Bruno Fernandes before that corner gets taken. It's to the theme tune of "You Are a Rat." And then before you know it, the ball is pinged in. Header, I want to say, from Jimenez in the direction of the back post, and Calvin Bassey just heads it beyond Onana to give Fulham a lead. And at that point, Rory, is a well-deserved lead. Maybe slightly against the run of play at that moment, because I think Man United had moments, shots from distances, it's fair to say. I think Bruno Fernandes looked quite threatening, and he did for the rest of the game as well, and got themselves back into it through Bruno Fernandes. But again, that was kind of the moral of Man United's story, where they had periods of the game where they transitioned quite well. They had interchanges. I thought Xerxes was quite lively as well, in particular. But they didn't really do enough in front of goal. It was shots from distances. It wasn't necessarily clear-cut chances. And I think Fulham were quite comfortable, in particular Bernd Leno. I thought he was phenomenal and gone.
Yeah, he had an unbelievable performance. I think he's a goalkeeper that obviously at Arsenal, I'm going to come at it with the Arsenal angle because that's where I watched him the most, but he was a goalkeeper that didn't really suit the style of what Arteta wanted to do with his feet. It's not the strongest part of his game. But in terms of like Emirates era goalkeepers, he's one of the best we had, if not the best we had in the Emirates. He's absolutely fantastic goalkeeper. And I think, again, another very clever signing from Fulham when they got him. They got him really cheap for like a Germany international and the level of player he is. Got him very cheaply, brought him in. They've got a easily top 10, top 8 goalkeeper in the league. And just in performances like this, you can really see that it's not only the shot stopping when he comes out and claims the ball, his command of his area. I feel like he made it a lot easier for Fulham to defend, and that's the goalkeeper's job, obviously, right? But I think it was just a really, really assured performance from him. And there's a lot of teams where, you've just not got that steady level in goal. Arguably, Man United haven't got that, right? And it just provides a little bit of stability to the defence and a little bit of confidence. And then bringing in a player like Anderson as well. Like, I think when he moved from Palace, people thought that was a bit of a sideways move. And it is a bit of a strange move, but I can see why Fulham have been like, we want him. Like, we know him from when he was in Serie A. We saw him at Palace when he was so good in their defence with his like ball playing and stuff. And he's coming at Fulham and just doing exactly the same thing. So I think between those centre three, and then you've got Anthony Robinson, arguably, my God, one of the best left backs in the league this year, if not the best left back in the league this year, like with his performances. And all of a sudden you're looking at a really, really solid defensive unit there. So I think there's like good building blocks in place for Fulham. And then like just going throughout the whole team, they brought in Sander Berge from Sheffield United, easily a Premier League level player. We're surprised he stayed at Sheffield United so long, but they were like, what's his name? Palhinha's gone. Boom, we've got him. Straight replacement. Easily slotted into that team. Pereira was another kind of reject without being too mean. His career was tapering away. Key player in this team. And you've got Traore, who's suddenly getting a bit of end product and is kind of adding a really different dimension to this team. And then Alex Iwobi, the playmaker, I'm just really enjoying watching him play. Like, his passing range is incredible. His ability to beat a man and like avoid the press. I think we're really seeing the best football from Alex Iwobi at Fulham. At Everton, I saw him as a good player, but I think at Fulham he's really hitting another level. Like, there was a lot of good in this game and across the season, like good individual performances, right?
Yeah, 100%. You've really summed it up nicely, but this squad has some really great characters now, especially as we talked about the back room and how they're all kind of bouncing around. You can see the little games between Calvin Bassey, Iwobi, and Emil Smith-Rowe, where I think they're trying to get a ball into a bin, essentially, in the gym. That seems to be the common theme that seems to be going on. But you can see there's a kind of appreciation for each other's careers as well. Like, they've all been kind of rejected at some point. And you can see that they're building themselves up to something even more special under Marcus Silva. And I think it's a lot of credit to Marcus Silva as well, because I don't think he was necessarily kind of favoured in this particular role. He's had to win over the fan base, and he did that very quickly by getting them promotion and doing it in some style, it's fair to say. And he's been stable. I think he's built this team over a number of seasons. And that's on top of the fact that behind the scenes there's been a lot of noise about pricing strategies and, pricing fans out of the club at the moment. So despite all of that, they've maintained kind of a togetherness, and I think the Fulham fans appreciate their efforts. You could see that even in the Old Trafford away ends, that they really love what they're seeing on the pitch. It's beautiful for them to enjoy and embrace it, I suppose, as well. And in an away game, which, again, it doesn't feel like you can ever say that Fulham are out of it, especially against Man United. They always seem to turn up for these matches these days, and they always seem like favourites now.
Yeah, there's been a few times they've just let it slip at the death, and you've been like, Fulham, you need to just see this out. But this is one where they did see it out. And before we talk about United, the penalties were so calm and collected from Fulham as well. Every single penalty was so confident. I think my favourite was probably, it's close between Anthony Robinson or Sander Berge for like the coolest penalty. I think Burgess maybe just nicks it because it's just that like really nonchalant side pass to the other side. I think Onana went way too early, but it was a really cool, calm penalty. And it felt like the Fulham players weren't letting the occasion get to them, because when it went to penalties, I kind of said to myself out loud, I was like, oof, penalties at Old Trafford in front of the Stretford end. Like, I know that it's not United of Ferguson. I know it's not United of 15 years ago, but that is a pretty daunting task. That is a pretty, they beat us at the Emirates on penalties, right? So, it's like there's a bit of a task there, but the players clearly just switch on, job done, super professional, right?
100%. They had to be what they had to do. And I have to say, it's probably a word to be said about Man United and their kicks as well. Not in particular aimed at Xerxes. I felt sorry for Xerxes in particular when he did take, and he had the man enough kind of ability to stand up and be counted. I think probably some question marks towards the likes of Alejandro Garnacho. Why wasn't he standing up to maybe take one of them? I think there's a good clip of Mark Goldbridge having a go at Casemiro before he actually strikes his, and it goes in, and then it goes, oh, he's earned that 350k a week, which I found was ironic given he probably slates him every week.
He's such a prick, isn't he? Anyway,
but there's probably some wider questions about what Man United's philosophy was there, and I don't think they probably, to be fair, Rory, probably practiced this scenario playing out. I thought they probably thought that it would be 1 in the 90.
I don't know, because I think against Arsenal they very much were like, right, penalties and we're done, and
which was understandable in those circumstances.
I knew the second they got to penalties they were like, well, they're going to win this because fucking hell. Leicester, they shouldn't have got through because the goal was offside. This game, it kind of felt like maybe their luck was going to carry them through, and they would just like get it through. But I think the first save from Bernd Leno was genuinely an outstanding save. I think like Lindelof does nothing really wrong there. I think that's a really good penalty.
Just guessed right. Yeah.
Sorry?
You just guessed right.
Yeah, no, exactly. And he gets there and he like really, really like, it was a very, very good save. I think, Xerxes I felt quite bad for, but as you said, he did step up. I think, look, United, that's one of the better performances I've seen from them recently, which is slightly concerning because Arsenal go there on next Sunday, I think. So it's a little bit concerning, but still the same old problems come through United. They weren't able to really fashion it, because it's weird because Leno made a lot of saves, but it never really felt like United were really hammering the door down. We're really like, okay, here comes the goal. Okay, here comes the moment. I think, weirdly, they looked more of a threat when Obi came on the pitch. The highly rated and much anticipated Obi, who, if there's any Arsenal fans giving him ill will, and I saw a lot of them, like, guys, fucking grow up. Like, he's 16, 17, and he's been promised first team football. Of course, he's going to go to United. Yeah. The fact he could be playing for us now, he did not know, right? But when he came on, he instantly had 3 chances, I want to say. none of them he was massively convincing with, but he was in the spaces. He was willing to take the shot. He was willing to take that opportunity. Whereas every game now, every United game, I find myself on FOTMob double checking that Højlund is playing.
Yeah.
I'm like, is he? Oh, he is playing. Okay. And I think, I know now it's getting a bit more vocal, but Xerxes was getting so much shit. And Højlund has been a million times worse.
Yeah.
Like, and I think at least Xerxes like builds up play, drops deep, beats a man, like gets involved in the game. Højlund, I don't know what his purpose is now. And it's not even, you can't say it's a lack of confidence because he's still trying back heels and he's still trying little flicks and and you're like, you might just be a bit dim. I don't know what it is. Like, he isn't serving a purpose.
Yeah, I think we saw a little bit of talent when he was at Atalanta, and I think Man United were too quick to make a bid without making a suitable assessment of his abilities, right? Don't forget, that was half a season when he kind of came out of nowhere and started scoring loads of goals for Atalanta at the time. He formed a good partnership with Lookman. This is the Gasperini style where he gets the best out of these players.
He gets goals out of his goalkeepers. Like, anyone can score in a Gasperini system, right? Like, without being rude, but he gets goals out of everyone.
But the point I'm trying to make is that he was kind of raw.
Yeah.
I mentioned it at the time. He's a project striker, but he's not a striker that can give you goals straight away. You need to give him trust. You need to build him up. He needs time. That's the problem of Man United, is they needed someone that could do it straight away.
Yeah.
This wasn't a player that had potential to push on. It was a case of he still needs time to develop his understanding, still understand his game and his credentials. And I feel he's just become lost with different philosophies, different asks of him as an individual, as a striker. But to your point, it's now getting to that area of where people are scrutinizing, what does he actually serve? What does he actually do for us? What does he actually add to our game? I think, and I feel now you're at that point where you're kind of saying that under 18 striker, if he's scoring goals for fun, let's just bleed him in now because he's going to do a better job than Højlund is right now. And I feel sorry for Højlund, but I feel that he needs to get himself a loan move out of the club, just go out and enjoy his football now. He's at that point where he's not, it doesn't feel like anyway that he's trying his best, but he's not necessarily enjoying himself because there's that amount of pressure probably on him to deliver goals right now. But equally, I think this is going to be a struggle to try and shift
how long
him
until
off.
that happens to Obi? And then you're going, oh, they brought in this 17-year-old and all the pressure is on his shoulders to score goals and all he needs to do is get out the club and get a loan. It sounds like it's like a prison. It's like, all they need to do is get out and enjoy the freedom and leave it behind them. Like, I think I know the point you're making, and you're absolutely right. But I think this cycle Obi isn't a finished article either. He's come from under 23s football where he was playing above his age group, smashing it, absolutely smashing it, right? Every Arsenal fan was super excited about him, right? Yeah. But you can't throw him in as Man United's number 9 and be like, right, 15 goals a season, please, mate.
No, far from it.
I think there's still that cycle and that issue remains. I just think it's United's knack of fucking ruining footballers is just incredible. And I think, but Højlund, I think you're right. He does need to get a loan back in Serie A for a year and just see if there's something left there or who can get a bit of your enthusiasm or creativity out of you, whatever it is. Because he's so far off it. And it just meant that United ultimately were so blunt. And they are just a team now who are relying on moments. And the only player who can provide moments, well, there's two. One of them has just fallen out with the manager, and we'll talk about him. But the other one is Bruno Fernandes. Unbelievable footballer. Just such a great footballer. A fantastic goal. But how many times must he just be like, fucking hell, guys, it's going to have to be me again to just pull some 40-yarder out to keep us in this game? Like, I found it really interesting, the clip that went a bit viral this week of Roy Keane genuinely losing his temper at Ian Wright, which made me a little bit sad. But anyway, where he was like, but it's not the captain we expect, right? And he's screaming or whatever.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
Like, I can understand what he means because I've I've slagged off Bruno Fernandes plenty of times for his histrionics and his spitting his dummy out, and when the game's not going his way, I don't think he's a particular type of character in that aspect that is what you expect from a captain. But when he's a player that consistently fishes you out of the shit and brings the big moments exactly when you need it, that is captain material as well, right? Like, how did you feel about that clip? I thought it was... I know what Keane means, but also don't go slagging off your best player, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think he's coming from a different angle, isn't he, in terms of what he feels are the characteristics that he wants to see from a person that's instilled as a captain of the club. But I think football has kind of pushed on from just those characteristics and traits, for example. And as you allude to, I think he displays a lot of that leadership criteria that Man United are lacking throughout the squad. He's the only one that I notice, Rory, of late that will face up to the media when he has to do his duties and actually, call out how they're playing, the position and, talking about the games. I don't see many previous captains. I mean, we've had Harry Maguire, but I didn't feel with Harry Maguire he was as blunt as sometimes Bruno Fernandes is at facing the truth, and handling that kind of criticism. I feel like with Harry Maguire, he was very political and probably trained through a Gareth Southgate lens in that respect, trying to be positive and not to be too downhearted about their prospects, right? But I feel that what Bruno Fernandes provides is probably a lot more to that group of players at the moment. And you're right to allude to the fact that whilst he is the one that's having to dig them out, I wonder if you go into a transfer window now in summer and you get a tasty bid for him, whether Man United consider that just to reinvest in terms of that squad. And that would be a hell of a blow, wouldn't it? Huge blow. But
they're in a situation now where they wouldn't be able to turn down that money anyway, because
that's what,
as Gary Neville has been fairly open about for some reason on his podcast, they're financially fucked. I think he's really quite keen to get that message across. So I think if anyone did come in from, they would have no choice but to sell, really. But I honestly think he would want to stay at United. I think he sees I think he is fully committed to that club.
Unless it's a club like a Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Unless it's someone of that caliber that... I'm not saying they would, personally, but I'm just saying if a caliber of a bigger club came in for him and said, we want you to be in our 11, I think he doesn't turn it down.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, because I think it's going to be a huge summer at United anyway, right? But the other kind of... Because United, it's often not on the field for long, is it? It's always off the field. Amorim versus Rooney. Amorim saying that the aim of the club is to win the Premier League. Very clearly not meaning this season or next season. Very clearly meaning this club is eventually aiming to win the Premier League again, which any sane fan would assume is the case anyway. Of course, would hope is the case. Obviously, those words have been twisted, and Rooney has told him that he's naive. I feel like at Manchester United, half of the issue is the ex-players.
Yeah.
There's just so much talk around them all the time, and they're not helping in any way. I feel like this with Arsenal. Every time Arsenal results go badly, Thierry Henry pipes up and starts complaining about how the club's being run badly because he wants his mate to buy the club. Like, we have Emmanuel Petit every single fucking time we hit a bad piece of form. But I feel like with United is much, much louder because it's every pundit on telly is ex-United. And I feel like it's really it's just an extra thing on Amorim's plate for him to deal with, that he now has to be like, well, clearly, I didn't mean this. It's just, they're not bloody helping.
They're not helping the situation, but we've known this scrutiny has been there for a while. Even when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the manager then, he still had the likes of Gary Neville and Roy Keane shouting out like he's got his tactics wrong. I'd be shaking that dressing room and all sorts. And it's like, Roy, that's why you're not a manager these days. And, Gary Neville, that's why you didn't last more than 6 months in Valencia, is because you didn't have the right mentality for us. I don't think they would have had, they might have had maybe a little bit of an impact from a point of view of scaring the hell out of certain individuals. But apart from that, I just don't think genuinely they could wrap themselves in terms of solving this issue. I think it's a lot deeper. I think Amorim's trying his best. He's trying to, and I'm not too sure about the philosophy still. I'm still a bit I can see where he's going with it, but I also feel it's not helped by the players.
Players don't fit the system. They don't fit the system. They just don't.
It's multiple managers transfers ultimately. Whether
Yeah.
we even say it's a Ten Hag / Solskjaer, we will never know who truly has bought these individuals, right? We
Yeah.
don't know who's actually bought this, but this is a problem of mismanagement down the years, down the decade. You can see those players coming through at the moment and they're blended into this squad. And the fact that, we joke about the leaks that happen off the pitch in that respect, but there's still definitely a content within the actual squad that seems to still share these stories openly to the media when they're not getting their ways. Even with Amorim trying to be strict with them, they don't seem to be reciprocating even the kind of messages and trying to keep it all in house. You almost feel like that's what seems to be missing at the moment, is that there's no sense of togetherness. And those players, I think it was always deemed as maybe it was a Marcus Rashford. I feel there's still someone within the current squad that is leaking this.
I'll tell you who it is. It's Garnacho. It's always been
Well,
Garnacho. It's been Garnacho the whole time. It's been right in front of your face. I know, sorry, that's the neighbour's dog, and he does that 24 hours a day, by the way, if you can hear that. Because my speaker's coming up, I think you can hear the dog. But he has the character, I think he's shown it on social media a few times, that he's very much out for himself. The leak is Garnacho. Get rid of him. I think the leak disappears. I've just got a really sneaky feeling about it. But obviously, Amorim tries to discipline him post, him storming off and copying his idol once again because he got substituted storming down the tunnel, but then has to rely on him to come on and change the game. And Garnacho, again, the duality of Garnacho, he comes on and he's a fantastic player, instantly causes Fulham problems and changes the game for Man United. And you're like, oh, they do kind of need him to play, right?
Yeah. They do. Unfortunately, he is one of the outlets that can add that bit of quality. Unfortunately, they've got that scenario where Amad Diallo is currently out injured. Until he comes back into the fold, they're going to have to rely on Alejandro Garnacho. But the problem is, it's just generally that depth of squad. They don't have that luxury, I'm afraid, Rory, where they can rely on certain individuals. You can even see it by the substitutions they had to make. Eriksen, who was given a rare opportunity to play, had to be substituted because he wasn't going to last the duration of the game. And that is the reality of it. They just cannot have a, quality that can last them throughout the season. I think my worry would be is I genuinely think they're not going to make Europe. They're not going to make Europe next season.
They're not making Europe this year.
Yeah, that's it. That's not going to happen now.
That's definitely not.
This was the opportunity. What I'm saying is, this was the opportunity. If you look at the FA Cup run,
right,
this was one of their opportunities, right? I appreciate they are still in a competition, but it's inevitable. I would anticipate, Rory, that they won't make it very far in that competition.
They're not winning the Europa League. No. I keep hearing people talk about it. I'm like, they're not. Are we watching the same team? Like, they're not going to win the fucking Europa League. It's not going to happen. I will honestly quite happily put my name to that. Like, they're not going to win it. I think the kind of last thing, I suppose, but the kind of what summed it up for me really is like, and I don't want it to, but Obi Martin and Aidan Heaven were two youngsters that ultimately Arsenal were like, okay, we'll try and keep you, but we're not that bothered. Right, like if you go, right? Then if it's Ethan Nwaneri or it's Lewis Skelly, they die to keep them at the club, right? But those two, they were like, okay, no, you're asking too much, go.
Sure.
And they go straight into the squad. And they arguably, possibly now go straight into the starting 11. And you're like, oh, wow, is this like, I don't want to sound patronizing or whatever, but like, is this the level they're at now? Like, this is where...
Yeah.
It's just, and I know they've got injuries, but it just, when I saw them come on and now they're being tipped for starting spots, I was like, damn, I don't blame those players for going at all, but it kind of says where Man United are at the minute. But last thing on Man United, in this week's episode of Why Jim Ratcliffe is a Prick, Manchester United tried to sell their Brazilian striker in the women's team. They tried to sell her while she was at her brother's funeral. They offered her out to other clubs on loan while she was back in her native Brazil. Just the PR train continues on full force. Obviously, her agent has come out pretty strongly and been like, yeah, we want to leave. We are done. Things weren't going well at United before this for her. She's been fairly open about the fact that she's kind of struggled in Manchester. Not really. They brought her in for quite a bit of money. It's not really worked. And now they tried to sell her at the worst possible time. Just everything at
Yeah,
that club in a minute is just just poison, isn't it? It's just poisoned at the moment.
it is.
But we're going to leave that game there. Congratulations to Fulham. We are fully backing you for a cup run. We're getting Roy Hodgson Europa League vibes. Come on, get the job done this time. We've got to get it done. I want to see Fulham win their first major trophy. But we're going to leave that game there, and we're going to go up. Let's go up to the northeast. Newcastle 1, Brighton 2. Danny Welbeck, possibly the most Serie A striker of the Premier League, hits his 34 and turns into a complete bagsman. What a finish, Adam. Unbelievable finish to win the game.
Fantastic finish. Ironically, set up by Solly March to kind of do it in the month of March. But yeah, it was a fantastic finish from Welbeck. It was well taken. If you look at his move, he kind of he's helped on by Timo Livramento, who was injured by all accounts at that very moment. He was suffering at the point. Keeps him onside, should I say. And Welbeck, what a distinct kind of finish. It was kind of the type of player that I kind of go, there's a few clubs that could do with him right now. There's a few clubs, yeah. And I was thinking that Arsenal being one of them. But you could see him fitting in really nicely without trying to sell him off from Brighton. But I could see him doing very well for those clubs. But that's why he's done so well at Brighton. It's because, he's been able to distinctively kind of finish those kind of opportunities. And Newcastle will be kicking themselves this morning, when you look at the opportunity that they had, and none more so when Eddie Howe realised that Anthony Gordon couldn't make the EFL Cup final, was an absolute picture, because how and why did he do it? I don't know, but it's such a strange game in some respects, because it was quite end-to-end in many points. Newcastle seemed to dominate it. Then it was like Brighton in their possession and being quite neat with their possession. And they seemed to just ride the moments, didn't they, Brighton? It seemed to be one of those that it could have gone either way, even with the sending off of both of the players, even Tariq Lamptey, who I felt was very unlucky as well, by the way.
Yeah. It's the second yellow, isn't it? It's kind of just a bit, he gets caught out of position a little bit and he lunges. And you're like, oh, yeah, I can see why you did it.
Does he touch him?
No, he doesn't.
That's the thing.
It's a second yellow, and you're like, yeah, fuck. Yeah. You've panicked for that split second, and it's kind of interesting because the last 10 minutes of the game were proper end to end, and you're like, this could go either way. And then extra time was actually not that dull for extra time. Usually extra time's a little bit dull, but it was. Like, they were really, both teams were going for it, but let's kind of focus on Anthony Gordon for a minute, because I want to kind of enjoy this a little bit. Just the stupidest decision I've seen on a football pitch in a very long time, and the just instant karma of him pointing and laughing at Van Hecker and then getting sent off. Like, honestly, if you could just inject that feeling into my veins, oh my God. It was so nice. I was like, you cocky little prick. Not only have you made the stupidest fucking foul in the world, you've tried to play it off and it's bitten you in the arse instantly. Unbelievable. And now he misses, as you said, the Carabao Cup final. Newcastle, Isak went off injured. They're going to be missing. Someone else went off injured
Lewis
as well.
Hall is one of them that will be missing. Obviously, Livramento is one that's already potentially could be missing for this final as well. So they are down to the bare bones again. So, the only person that will be relieved is probably Harvey Barnes, because he's guaranteed a spot for the EFL League final.
And on a slot, as he lines up and goes, well, here we go, boys. I'll tell you what, Liverpool, they faced, what was it? They faced Newcastle without Isak already. They faced City without Haaland, and now they're going to face Newcastle without bloody Gordon, Isak, half the team. Tell you what, when it falls for you, it falls for you. But, I really enjoyed that moment because I don't like Anthony Gordon. But it was a really, really stupid decision, right? And kind of really put the game into Brighton's hands. When I said Newcastle were there to really win the game, the crowd were up. It looked like they were going to go on and win it. Sorry.
Yeah, certainly rush of blood to his head. Don't know what was going through his head at that very moment. Obviously, he was getting wound up by Van Hecker. Clearly,
he is a shithouse, Van Hecker. To be fair,
he is. But there are ways to get at him, and that wasn't one of the ways to do it. Unfortunately, not striking out. Let's put it that way.
Don't punch him in the side of the head.
In front of the referee, plus the kind of VAR cameras and all sorts. he was just asking for issues. And unfortunately, look, like I say, it cost Newcastle a genuine opportunity of maybe making this year more than just the EFL Cup, because that was always going to be a hard one. But the fact that you haven't got some of the big teams, you could have been there, you could have been at the final itself, with an easy-ish opponent potentially in the final. I'm sure they'll be kicking themselves. But look, they've only got themselves to blame. They didn't do it in the 90. They didn't kill off the opportunities. And yeah, Brighton purring. Brighton are definitely purring.
Yeah, unbelievable performance from them. I really wanted to talk about Hinshelwood. I really like him as a player. I'm still not sure what his actual position is, but every time I see him play, he's very, very good. I'm very excited about him.
Very agile.
Thought he had a very, very good game. And on the let's just have one last dig at Newcastle, I thought Livramento had an absolute stinker. I thought in the last couple of games, he's not been very good at all across this season. He is the player that keeps Welbeck onside for the winner in the end. And there was a few just loose passes, a few moments where he lets the ball bounce on the edge of the box and stuff, and just a bit of
it doesn't clear
doubt or a bit of like, he's not really, it was a really, really not good performance from him. And I really enjoyed Danny Welbeck coming off. Did you see the video of this Brighton social media team? Unbelievable. Where he's like, someone just gave me a bit of stick, but they don't know that I'm a Mackham at heart or something. Just absolutely brilliant. Really enjoyed that. I love how Mank Welbeck is. Every time he talks, I'm like, his accent is just absolutely glorious. Love it for that guy. Just what a finish. But we're gonna leave that game there. 2 red cards, 3 goals, extra time, everything.
Brilliant.
We had it all.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next headline. I suppose there's only one real moment to talk about. Crystal Palace 3, Millwall 1. Oh, bloody hell.
What a challenge.
Michael Oliver, what are you looking at, mate? To only give that as a yellow. Now, I'm not going to... Some red card decisions that Michael Oliver has given this season, without thinking, after about 3 seconds, there have been instant reds, and he looks at that and it's not a red card. I'm not hearing a single pundit in the country now saying he's still our best referee. He needs genuine punishment for not instantly calling that as a red card. And not even that, he didn't even pause the game. He let the game carry on when it's clearly a fucking head injury. If that boot is half an inch to the side, we don't know what happens to Mateta. Probably fucking breaks his neck, best case scenario, right? And Oliver continues to let the game go because he's waiting for VAR to call it. No, mate, you have to make the decision. And when it's that obvious, I don't know if you've seen the picture, and I know it's not. He could have been fucking scratching his balls. He could have been looking at someone in the crowd. I don't know. But his line of sight is directly at that tackle. Yeah. Like, down the barrel, you can see the studs. Like, there is no excuse for him to not give an instant red and stop the game there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Steve Parish kind of really summarized it very well. Like, what on earth does it take for there to be like a stop in play for that very moment? Like, what was he waiting for? What was he trying to do? And like you say, that could have been even worse. That could have been a hell of a lot worse. And whilst I can kind of understand that the Millwall player had to play it with his feet, that was dangerous. That was you're asking for yourself to be sent off. There's no excuses for that. But how Michael Oliver doesn't see it as a red card is beyond me. He must have been sniffing some of the stuff that David Coote has been on recently. Like, what on earth are you doing in that
very moment? What are you there for? What are you there for?
It's a genuine concern that he's kind of considered one of England's best of like referees at the moment, because he just cannot seem to get the simple things right at the moment. He doesn't seem to be very capable. And I wonder if there's too much reliance now from these referees on VAR. That they just
100%.
They've got to stop doing this. They've got to start making calls. And VAR is there to kind of say, no, you got that wrong.
Yeah, correct.
You've got that wrong.
Their decisions, not make the decisions.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's such an absence of duty. And the fundamental role of a referee on the pitch isn't to enforce the rules, is to enforce the safety of the players.
Yeah.
So that it's not just fucking Tony Pulis elbowing everyone on the pitch for 90 minutes. Like, that is your fucking job. And if you're not doing it, not to sound like Roy Keane, do your fucking job. But like,
yeah, exactly.
You're not there for decoration, mate. Like, I honestly thought it was one of the worst decisions or non-decisions I've ever seen. Like, look, the goalkeeper's had a rush of blood to the head, moment of madness, like whatever you want to describe it as. It's insane that he decides to run out and lead with his 6 foot in the air. It's mental. Like, Mateta is not a short man. Like,
No.
how he's fucking made that decision. But fine, you're on telly, you're excited, whatever shit happens. We know he didn't mean to do it. He's not gone out there to fucking do it.
Of course not.
But for me, the main issue here is the referee. I still think Steve Parish, he came across quite well, but I think if I was his PR agent, I would have been like, let's just wait till after the game and we can see what's happening. So I'm not sure if it was wise to go on at full time with your blood still pumping so hard. But
I personally loved it.
I think he came across really well. I just think,
it's a fan. He's a fan. He's a fan ultimately. As much as probably Crystal Palace fans don't actually appreciate him as being a fan of theirs, he genuinely comes in with a lot of passion. For a chairman to display that at a match like that as well. Right. I can understand why people get riled up by him at the same time. Look, I don't think he makes the correct financial decisions, it's fair to say. John Textor being one of them. But
well, exactly. Yeah.
That's another topic for another day. Yeah. But ultimately, I didn't see it being an issue. But I can understand why people see it that way.
Right. I think you might be right. But yeah, Palace did get the game. They did get the result in the end. Eddie taking his chance, getting another goal for Palace
nice as well.
Just delighted, really nice finish. Delighted to see him doing well and getting a few goals.
And that celebration from the players around him.
Yeah, they were so happy for him. Like everyone, and even the post-match conference with Mark Gahey as well, just saying like, he's never complained, never said anything. He's deserved these minutes. He's making the most of it. Like, absolutely fair play. And yeah, Glasner, another manager and another team here where you think, with a little bit of luck and a bit of rub of the green, we could get Glasner doing an embarrassing dance at Wembley if we play our cards right.
Might do that full time, right?
Full time this time.
Rather than after a goal.
Yeah. Full time this time maybe. But yeah, I think, obviously they're still City. I think City will go out to Bournemouth. I think I'm fairly confident about that. Fingers crossed. If that does happen, fucking open season for the FA Cup. Let's see who wins it. Like, unbelievable. I think the football gods need to ensure that Man City go out in the next round. That's all we need. And then
that's all we need.
One club. Then
we don't care who wins it now.
Exactly.
We don't care who wins it.
It's just a happy ending. So I think, that's if you could get on that would be fantastic. Let's move to Bournemouth very quickly. Cunha versus the world. Unbelievable. What a performance.
Talk about a head loss.
Incredible goal. When he decides that Wolves are just going to win the game, he just scores. He's like, right, I'm bored. I'm going to score now. But what was it? Like, I love the fact that Cunha just stood up and was like, right, let's have a square go then. Like, let's go, mate. Let's do it.
Exactly.
But he kicked him, punched him, and headbutted him. Like, it's the big three.
Yeah, he went for it all, didn't he? Just to make sure he was definitely going to get a few games rest, right? That's it. I
don't know. Yeah. Unbelievable.
I don't know what he was thinking, though, because genuinely at that point in the game, Wolves still have a chance. They have a chance, and they were threatening Bournemouth at that point, The fact that, when it came to full time, the kind of PA announcers trying to rile up the Dean Court grounds, trying to get Bournemouth to realise, we've never bloody made the quarterfinals more than twice in our history.
Something?
Can we please just encourage the players to get through this, right? Because Wolves, they did superbly well in this match. I don't think they did badly, and as you allude to, fantastic, well-taken goal by Cunha. But Bournemouth had enough grit on the day. They saw themselves through to the penalty shootout, and we'll talk about penalties and being, calm and collective from a Fulham perspective. What about the Bournemouth ones?
That's Semenyo, my days. He's such a cool player. It reminded me when we used to play like five-a-side football, and the one-step penalties where it's just like you're not. It was just so good, and all these penalties have been like different. Like a different style, but very calm, very cool, and with a little bit of like finesse. Yeah. Very, very excited about him as a player. Really would quite like Arsenal to take a close look at him. Really, really cool penalty. Bournemouth get it done. And also Zabani, a player that I've been a big fan of for a while, on his Instagram, he was taking an ice bath And in the caption at the bottom, he just said, "It's also important to remember how much of a fucker Donald Trump is," which I really enjoyed. Post, obviously, those horrific scenes at the White House, Zabani having his little say, which I did really enjoy. To wrap up the rest, what can we say? Man City 3, Plymouth 1. Another Ukrainian, Maxi, getting the goal to give Plymouth the lead. A really beautiful post-match interview with him, talking about his dad and how he sends him advice about each striker, and they still talk every day, but he's not seen his dad for like 3 years because of the war and stuff. It was like a really heartbreaking. I felt like with the reporter, I was like, oh, stop asking these questions, trying to get your moment. But also it was a really nice moment. I'm always torn in those situations, but it was a nice interview. But ultimately City get the job done. Nico O'Reilly looks like quite an exciting player, so he gets 2 goals. KDB gets a third. Plymouth just kind of collapsed once they equalised. Like right on half time, you're like, okay, that game's probably done now, I suppose. Elsewhere, best free kick of the weekend, Robbie Brady, unbelievable free kick for Preston. Absolute beauty. As Burnley conceded some goals, I was talking to someone who's watched a bit of Burnley, and they said that their XG against has been massive, and this run of
incredible.
This run of clean sheets has been insane and against all odds. So it looks like the chickens have come home to roost a little bit. As Preston got 3, Brady got a beautiful free kick, but that racist prick scored, so that's a shame to see. He cupped his ears to the crowd. I was a bit like, you don't like to see it. But Preston, the only non-Premier League team left in the competition, it'd be interesting to see how they get on. And finally, Aston Villa 2, Cardiff 0, Asensio and Rashford, the bromance we all needed. Incredible link between these two players. Asensio on fire, and Adam El Ghazi gets to say goodbye to Villa Park. That was nice to see the whole end applauding him as well.
Yeah, and you know what? I did catch some of the highlights here as well. Cardiff did admirably quite well. You know, it was 20 minutes or left on the clock before Aston Villa managed to do the breakthrough in this match. And like you say, it was a great combination with Asensio adding that bit of quality that they just needed at this point in the season. It's just been absolutely amazing. But yeah, Cardiff did themselves really well, Rory, despite the fact that they're not doing very well domestically in the league. And Rory, will just quickly call it as well. Nottingham Forest and Ipswich have been playing as we've been kind of recording the pod. It finished 1-1, went to penalties, and Ipswich are out on penalties. They lost 5-4 to Nottingham Forest. So, yes, it's Nottingham Forest through to the next round.
And they will be facing Brighton, who will definitely be looking for revenge for that 7-0. I think Brighton are going to want to be absolutely battering them. So a nice little bit of narrative there. The other quarterfinals we have, Preston will be hosting Aston Villa. Fulham will be hosting Crystal Palace in a lovely London derby. And Bournemouth, as we said, will be hosting Man City. Come on, you cherries, do the Lord's work. Let's have some lovely semi-finals, shall we, please? So, guys, that is all the FA Cup action this weekend. What a weekend it was. We're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, we're going to look forward to all the European action, and next week, Premier League action. We'll see you there. And we are back. It is time for last 16 of the Champions League, Europa League and Conference League. I'm excited. Let's do it. First off, on Tuesday night, we have Club Brugge, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
The mighty conquerors of Atalanta, who will be hosting Aston Villa. That's going to be an interesting one. Jutla up front for Club Brugge is an exciting player, but I think Villa should be able to get that one done. Yeah. I'm trying not to look at Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, because that's definitely the most enticing tie of the round. We have Arsenal will be travelling away to PSV with no strikers, but hopefully a cat's chance in hell. We will see. And Liverpool travelling to Paris. They got absolutely shafted with that draw, right? Travelling to Paris for PSG, a resurgent PSG, scoring lots of goals. It'll be interesting to see if Liverpool can keep them there. Then in the Europa League, we have Man United travelling to the Basque Country to take on Real Sociedad. We have Tottenham heading over to AZ Alkmaar. We can only call them Tottenham from now on, by the way. Just Tottenham. Tottenham heading to AZ Alkmaar. And in the Conference League, who do Chelsea have? They're travelling up to Denmark to face Copenhagen. That is your English European action this week. Adam, what have we got in the Premier League?
Yes, it's round 28 games. We'll start off on Saturday at 12:30 p.m. We've got Nottingham Forest at home to Man City before we see the 3 p.m. kickoff time. So Brighton and Hove Albion at home to Fulham, Crystal Palace at home to Ipswich Town, Liverpool at home to Southampton before at 5:30 we see Brentford at home to Aston Villa. And then at 8 p.m. we've got Wolves at home to Everton. We then move into Sunday's fixtures, starting at 2 p.m. We've got Chelsea at home to Leicester City, and then Tottenham Hotspur, or Tottenham, or the Lily Whites of the North London area, taking on Bournemouth before we see at 4:30 the big game, Rory, Man United at home to Arsenal with a projected, I think there's going to be a fan protest, I believe. So let's see how many are going to be in the ground by half time. Anyway, we move into the final game. That's on Monday at 8 p.m. and that is West Ham United taking revenge on their Newcastle counterparts by bringing them down all the way to the London Stadium for this big game as they host Newcastle United. And that is your round of 28 games, Rory.
Guys, get ready for that Arsenal United game to be an all-timer of a shit game.
It's not going to be pretty, is it?
Absolute dross. I feel like if you think Arteta is happy with a draw, wait until you see how we turn up to that game. Jesus Christ, it's going to be horrendous. I'm just going to have to drink through that one or something. I don't know, take hallucinogenics. I don't know. I'm going to see how I deal with it. But not feeling confident. But guys, listener, thank you as always for joining us. We appreciate so much that you choose to spend your time with us. It means the world to us. You can find us on all our social media at Anglo-Italian Pod, apart from on X, where we're at Italian Anglo Pod, because some person will not give us that handle. I'm working on it. If you're on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button down here somewhere. If you're on Apple Podcasts, I know you are, because the majority of our listeners are on Apple Podcasts. I've looked at the numbers. I've been on the website. Give us a rating. Please, for the love of God, give us a rating and a review if you're feeling extra generous. It would mean...
It's the review we need.
It's the
review we need.
The review we really need.
We need someone to give us some balance.
Just do it. Of course, go out and check out our Serie A weekend. The title race is heating up as nobody wants to win. Go check that one out. And as always, guys, we'll see you next time. Cheers. See you later.
Take care.
Beautiful.